Hello, and thank you for joining us today. The Art Alliance for Contemporary Glass and Intersect Chicago have gotten together to offer you 6 videos during this week post SOFA Chicago. We are starting with the Glass Alliance of New Mexico, and I really want to thank Sarah Nelson, who is the communications chair for the Glass Alliance of New Mexico, for putting this together. Please enjoy as we go through New Mexico and the Sand of Enchantment.
Thank you, Mara Lee. Welcome, everybody. We really appreciate the Art Alliance for Contemporary Glass for sponsoring this program and being able to share with you everything about New Mexico and our glass community. We're calling this Where There Is Sand, There Is Glass Art. So welcome to the news stories of New Mexico related to glass. I'd like to again thank AACG as our broadcasting system. And my name is Sarah Nelson. I'm acting as the news anchor. And I'd like to call out Willie Hay, who is our field correspondent who put all these videos together. We put out a call to our galleries and artists, and they submitted wonderful material. But first, a news from our sponsor of New Mexico. The state of New Mexico, the land of enchantment, but as glass artists say, the sand of enchantment. And our community in New Mexico, as far as glass, is wonderful. We've had the Glass Alliance for about 14 years, and we have helped create, curate, and cultivate a really strong community of artists, galleries, and collectors. There's hot shops all over the state of New Mexico, but we have 3 main hot shops in Santa Fe that are the most well-known: Tsuki Glassworks, Liquid Light Glass, and Prairie Dog Glass. Tsuki was founded by Charlie Miner in 1975, Liquid Light by Elodie Holmes in 1986, and Prairie Dog with Patrick Morrissey in 2005. All of them do slightly different things. They all have a sales gallery open to the public. Some teach classes, some do demonstrations, and some of the artists might work out of 1 or 2 or more of the hot shops. So now we're going to patch in and hear from the hot shops themselves.
It records everything you do and every movement, but it also records every hesitation that you have. All of a sudden, everything will happen within a couple of minutes. I'm MF Baker. I'm the shop tech at Tsuki Glassworks. When we're working the glass and it's in a molten state, we just have to be in the piece in the moment and keep going. You can't step back to evaluate it very easily. We're one of the oldest glass studios and galleries in the United States. We're the oldest glass studio and gallery in New Mexico. We have 10 artists that work here, help run the business, and also make everything that you see on site. We have a variety of pieces in every price range to meet anyone's budget. We have an amazing space here and an amazing place to come visit. We happen to have a peacock breeding program on the grounds here. People are always welcome to come with their family and check out the peacocks and get a picture with them if they like. We're planning on being here for quite a while and maintaining our provenance as one of the oldest art glass studios in the US.
My name is Elodie Holmes. Welcome to my shop, Liquid Light Glass, here in Santa Fe, New Mexico. We're standing in the gallery of my shop, and I've been in this building about 20 years now, but I've been in Santa Fe, since 1981. And here we are with some of my work. This is my Aurora Series. Some of these pieces do turn, which is kind of fun. Being kind of flattened out. During the process of blowing them, I decided I couldn't decide which side I like to look at, so I made them on swivel stands. I do make my own colors. I'm known for melting a calcedony color. It's based on an ancient Italian glass formula, and we get all these really vibrant colors in the pieces, and I just fell in love with it years ago.
Elodie, I hear you have an exciting project coming up next year.
Yeah, I've been invited to show at the Santa Fe Botanical Gardens. It's a glass and metal show, and I'll have a pollinator theme with my work. I'll be working in collaboration with Caleb Smith. He's one of my metalsmiths, my main metalsmith that helps make some of my stands here. And he also turned us on to bees about 10, 12 years ago. So it's nice to be able to do a project of these little critters that we love so much. This is some of my glass work with the bee theme, but I'll be doing something completely different. It'll be much larger, and it'll be outdoors. So we'll make it durable for the elements, and it'll be completely different. So I'm excited to get into that.
I'm Pat Morrissey. Welcome to Prairie Dog Glass in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And we've been here since 2005, about 15 years. We presently have around 8 people due to COVID working here.
Patrick, why do you think New Mexico and Santa Fe have such a strong glass history?
Well, it actually has a strong art history, and that's why the glass fits so well here. So right now we're 7 times per capita greater than anywhere else in the country with artists, blacksmiths, jewelers, ceramicists, everybody. So the glass just sort of fits in this wonderful art community. And so that's one of the reasons why it's started early and kept going.
do you have a mentor or educational experience that changed the kind of glass that you create?
Yeah, I do actually. I started early when I went to Penland School of Crafts, and I got a chance to work with, well, Fritz Streisbeck, but also Harvey Littleton. And I really liked Harvey's attitude towards art and glass art in general. And so he did a book called Technique is Cheap, and it focused on put your art first and the technique will follow, which I really like that philosophy. So I've been following that ever since.
Well, in 1974, Dale Chihuly, under the leadership of Lloyd Kiva-New, came to Santa Fe and helped build a hot shop for the Institute of American Indian Arts, IAIA. And so we have a strong connection with the bigger community of glass. The Museum of Indian Arts and Culture, MIAC, in Santa Fe is going to launch a show. It'll open April 18th, called Clearly Indigenous: Native Visions Reimagined in Glass. It's about 35 artists, Native Americans, who work in glass. And we're going to hear from curator Dr. Letitia Chambers. There will also be a book out by the same name.
Clearly Indigenous is both a book and an exhibit. The full title is Clearly Indigenous: Native Visions Reimagined in Glass. It's going to open at the Museum of Indian Art and Culture, also called MIAC, in Santa Fe, New Mexico. It'll open the weekend of April 18th, 2021. Will run for 14 months until June 19th of 2022. There are 34 artists in the exhibit and 140 pieces of glass. And fortunately, we're going to be in a very large gallery, so we're able to display the glass beautifully. There has never been an exhibit of this magnitude of Native American glass art in the past. There have been shows that individual artists have done, and there was a group show a number of years ago, but it was a small show and with a limited number of artists. And in fact, when that exhibit was done, there weren't nearly as many natives working in glass as there are now. I was close to the late Lloyd Kiva-New, who was one of the founders of the Institute of American Indian Arts, also in Santa Fe. And he told me the story of how Dale Chihuly came to the Institute in 1974 on loan from the Rhode Island School of Design to create a glass hot shop and to teach. And it was a story that I always thought should be told. Native artists have learned the methods and techniques of working with glass from major glass artists like Chihuly and others, but they bring to their art the intellectual content of their own cultures and their artistic traditions. For example, Pueblo artists are known for their works in clay and making clay pots. And several Pueblo artists make glass pots, blow glass pots in this tradition. For instance, Spooner Marcus from Okeawinge, Pueblo, has created some glass pots that were inspired by historic pots that were put together from shards. Really interesting work. He also has done other pots and that include traditional motifs from Pueblo designs. Other Pueblo artists who have made pots have worked with glass blowers in collaboration, and then the Pueblo potters have carved or sandblasted their designs into the pots. Some of the other glass blowers from Pueblos are Tony Hajola, who was actually the first Pueblo artist to work in glass, Ira Lujan, who often makes pots but also does animal fetishes in glass, which he sometimes makes as lids for his pots. So there's a strong tradition of Indian artists using their traditional motifs in their glass art. The same is true for artists from the Northwest Coast who are from basket making traditions. And there are several glass artists who've made stunning baskets in glass, modeled after the Salish baskets of their ancestors. Dan Friday is one who has done both baskets and also has done fish and other animals that are used for sustenance in the Northwest. Whether the artists are making totems or house posts or boxes, as the wood carvers from the Northwest Coast used to make. They've made these in glass and they're stunning, and they continue to use the iconography of their cultures. Preston Singletary is perhaps the best known native glass artist, and he has told the creation story of his Tlingit people, the story of Raven bringing light to the people. And he's also collaborated with a number of other native glass artists, thus expanding the universe of natives working in glass. Other artists have focused on the representation of their ancestors. Joe David, in a collaboration with Preston Singletary, created a bust that's based on ceremonial mask regalia. Lillian Pitt has recreated in glass a pictograph that is important to her people from the Columbia River Gorge area in Washington State. Other artists have worked on bridging the worlds of mainstream society and native society. Joe Feddersen has done works that juxtapose traditional and contemporary native life. And other artists who work in glass have worked with social commentary. Angela Babby, who works with kiln-fired glass-on-glass pieces, has done a great deal of social commentary with her work. And Virgil Ortiz, a well-known Pueblo potter, has created a sci-fi story in glass that looks back to the Pueblo Revolt of 1680 with future aeronauts trying to find artifacts from that period. So we have people working in the most traditional forms to very imaginative forms in their glass art. Carol Lujan is a Navajo artist, and she has created rugs in glass that are based on the weavings that her grandmother used to make. And these glass rugs are created by, she makes a mold with clay, and then she slumps the glass in the mold. Dale Chihuly taught the first Native artists who worked in glass. Larry Avicana, who was a graduate of the Institute of American Indian Arts, studied with Chihuly at the Rhode Island School of Design, and he was the first Native glass blower. Other artists were also heavily influenced and taught by Chihuly, both at IAIA and at Pilchuck Glass School, which Chihuly founded in the early 70s. Chihuly also was one of the founders of a glass school that was in existence for about 15 years in Taos. And Tony Hahola, who studied with Chihuly, taught at that school. And several of the Pueblo artists were introduced to glass at the Taos school. So Chihuly really brought glass art to Indian country. Serendipitously, he was very influenced by Native art. His first major series of cylinders was influenced by Navajo rugs, and he took Navajo weaving designs and adhered the glass strands to cylinders, and those are very famous works of his. He also was influenced by the Salish baskets and their graceful undulating shapes. And so when you look at Chihuly baskets and you see the shapes of the baskets, there's a great deal of Indian influence in his work.
So as you can see, the opening date is April 18th, and that should say 2021. And we're really excited about this show and all the work in it. And if anyone else is excited and would like to get involved in the exhibit, they can contact Jamie at the museumfoundation.org and learn about sponsorship. So we follow Chihuly's vision on education, and we still have glass art classes at the IAIA, the Institute of American Indian Arts. We also have a Bullseye Glass Center in Santa Fe. We have a community college in Santa Fe Community College, who holds glass art classes within their sculpture department. And CNM, our Central New Mexico Community College in Albuquerque, has a makerspace where they teach glass, and Glass Alliance gives scholarships. And now we're going to hear from this year's award winner, Stefan Listerman.
So Stefan, can you tell me what it has meant for you to get the Glass Alliance scholarship?
Well, I have had this idea of wanting to go bigger with my work for quite a while, and that requires assistance, which requires paying the assistants. So that was the purpose of applying for the scholarship, and now that I've received it, I've actually been able to start working on that. Today will be the third time that we work on larger size pieces, which is like a long time dream coming true, because you can't do it by yourself. Therefore, as far as the whole scholarship concept goes, I can only encourage any New Mexico glass artist to apply for the scholarship now that it's out for the second time around. Because if you have a clear idea of where it would benefit you, it makes a lot of difference.
Yeah, I actually was working as a painter and a sculptor for 25 plus years before I ever got involved in glass. At the time I was living on Maui, I had an opportunity to assist somebody with glass blowing, and that gave me enough exposure to the material to realize that I want to see what I can do with glass. So I couldn't do that on Maui, not my own work, and that's what led me to move to Santa Fe eventually, where for the last 3.5 years I've been working on developing my own line of glass.
Can you show us some of your favorite pieces?
Yeah, these are part of my aquatic series, which is actually pretty challenging, leading unfortunately to several of the pieces being lost in the annealing process. Fortunately, I was able to use fragments from those pieces and then put them on this new series that I fittingly call Fragments, where I could design the background to go with fragments of the larger pieces that didn't quite make it.
So New Mexico has many great artists that call it home, but we have several glass artists who we call our pioneer glass artists. Mary Schaffer, Emily Brock, Lucy Lyon. All these ladies have been creating glass for a long career. And before there was any how-to on the internet, they were exploring with glass. And we're going to hear from them now.
Hi, my name is Mary Schaffer.
Well, that's an earlier picture of me. This is me now, walking in quarantine, looking at the sky and the ground. A couple of years ago, I was at my local farm and ranch machine shop, and I saw a strange-looking part on the floor. I fell in love. It's an engine manifold. I bought it and chromed it. I was invited by the Museum of Glass in Tacoma to work with the Dream Team. Sarah Gilbert, Gabe Freehan, and shop director Benjamin Cobb. We made legs, lots of legs for the manifold. The legs make it look more like an animal, strange-like, which is what I want. I like to find objects and bring out another part of their character, another aspect of a visual potential they have. The legs became the rope series. Wall rope, very straightforward and direct, flowing from a chromed pipe, and double rope, which again uses a found stainless steel machine part made for high pressure liquids. Those of you that know me know I'm very direct, so I suppose my work reflects that as well. I like fluidity, and I'm intrigued by the way glass combines with machine parts, farm industrial equipment, even household items. This is a braided rope on a fabricated base, rope ledge. Big news for me is Schiffer is publishing a book about my work coming out in October of this year with essays by Bill Warmus, Lucy Lepard, and Jane Adland wrote the introduction. Also stories by me and lots of images. Here's a quick look at some available pieces. My thanks goes to Habitat, to Corey and Aaron, and of course Ferd. Habitat has been my gallery for over 20 or 40 years, I'm not sure, and I appreciate that and the work they do for our glass community. Thank you.
And I'm here in Corrales, New Mexico, sitting with Emily Brock.
Hi, glass friends. We're sitting in my packing room, which is also a staging area for my work, and sometimes doubles as a little gallery. I've been working with glass for about 40 years and started when kiln working wasn't really very well known, and I'd spent about 6 years just testing and trying to find people to help me. And New Mexico is a good place to do that because there are lots of other artists here. And one thing I was able to find information on was kilns, because there are a lot of people working with clay in this area.
So Emily, you're going to share with us some of your techniques that you use to make components for your pieces. Tell us about how you got started in doing that.
I am pretty much self-schooled in how to work with glass, because when I started, there wasn't a lot of information available. So for about 6 years, I did testing and reading and falling asleep with books from the Corning Museum landing on my nose. So took a while, but I finally figured out some ways of working that would help me tell my story.
Tell us about the components that you have in front of you here. I see maybe a starting of a floor or a platform for one of your vignettes.
These are just samples of things that go into the pieces, and I know when people just view a piece, it's hard for them to understand what happens to make the pieces. A lot of my pieces start out with flat sheets of glass, colored, and they're from Bullseye. And Bullseye was, at the time I was just starting to wonder about kiln-fired glass, was just developing their line of beautiful colored glass sheets that you use. First of all, I cut out pieces that are just one single layer, and they are stacked like these are. And then very often I will piece a design together. And then this is put in a kiln and fired to about 1500 degrees. Books are one of my passions, and so I had to learn how to make book covers so I could make some of my libraries and different scenes. If you'll look at a group of my pieces, almost always in every piece there'll be a book. I find some reason to put a book in there. They start out like we were talking before, like a flat piece of glass, and then are slumped over again steel molds, and it makes the cover. And then I go on and cut very tiny thin pieces of glass to put in the pages. And then these go in my libraries that I make. And when I first started doing these pieces, I made them much simpler and displayed them at arts and crafts fairs. And it was usually outside during the summer, which was blazingly hot. And I was in my booth one day, and some people were looking at a bar, simpler than this, but a little bar that I had made. They were kind of laughing, and I was listening, and one of them said, "I want to be in there." And that phrase has echoed throughout all the pieces that I've made, because I want people to go into my pieces to think about themselves being in these locations. And I try and put a lot of detail in pieces like this. What's hard about detail, like in the little glasses, is making sure they're all the same size. And the backs of the chairs are sandblasted to give them a design that goes well with the black and white theme in this piece. Among the details that I make, there's even a sink behind the bar where the bartender could clean up. And I think about all of these people sitting around in these chairs with their glasses and napkins in front of them, talking and having a good time. And the bartender is back there cleaning and keeping up with them, serving drinks, and trying to make sure everything's cleaned up for his patrons. That I'm a documentarian above all. I am interested in showing us the way we are now and letting people to know in the future, three-dimensionally, how our lives were lived. There's a lot of two-dimensional records, but These, I think, really gives a good representation of how we are in the future, to the future.
Hi, I'm Lucy Lyon. Welcome to my studio. Welcome to my studio here in Jacunita, New Mexico. These are some of the figures I've been working on recently. I'm thinking about doing a show with women. And these may be some of the characters, but these are just clays at this point. This is the room that we do I sculpt in and we make the waxes in. And over here you see many figures that I've made over the years. So this is a figure that is going to be cast. It is wax, and it has already been molded once. It was originally clay, and now it's wax, and then it will get invested and become glass. So just as a departure from always doing figures, I decided that I would try doing canines because canines actually hang out with people a lot. And these are my first attempts at canines. I was going to pair them with people, but I actually like them on their own. These are books that each one is an individual book. And they will get stacked as part of a piece as for him, and he is a reader, a young man wearing his pajama pants, and reading has been one of the themes that is really popular with my work. I've done a lot of libraries and reading-related pieces.
Besides our artist pioneers, we have artist innovators. These are artists that maybe came to glass later in life or had a different career or are really just pushing the boundaries of the medium. Even though there were a lot of materials on the internet at this point, they still are clever and doing something extraordinary. Let's hear from these ladies.
If anyone had ever told me I'd be working with glass, I would have said, don't be silly, it's too shiny. Because I've always worked with natural materials. Of course, if I had thought about it, glass is a natural material. It's sand, heated by fire. So you have two of the essential materials of this earth. And the reason that glass is such a perfect material at this point in my life, after years of working with other materials, is that it is an amorphous solid. It has a random molecular structure. Most solids have a latticework structure. Glass is kind of all over the place. And the unconscious is an amorphous solid. It has something to do with living in the mystery that life is. And that's how I describe myself as an artist, is being able to be in that mystery in a way that really is grounded and to be able to grow over a lifetime and to go deeper and deeper into the mystery of being alive, knowing that you're never, ever going to have any kind of answer. And the art has been an expression that has allowed me to go deeper and deeper into my own woundedness in order to heal it, so that I can walk into the territory of the unconscious without fear. And glass to me holds that. It's an amorphous solid, but it's also the sand that it comes from, which comes from millions of years of rocks wearing away, boulders wearing away. So it holds our geological time, and it also holds for me an emotional, psychological time, and the great unconscious that we all have our feet in, whether we're aware of it or not.
Hi, I'm Karen Bexfield, and I want to share with you how my curiosity fuels my passion in the medium of glass. In front of you, you'll see 3 of my recent sculptures: Enigma, my newest sculpture, Embrace, and to the far left, the green sculpture, Passage. So the most common question that I get is, Karen, how do you get the holes? So I'm going to share with you a little bit about my process and how I go from the raw material of frit through to the sheet glass, which I reference as my fabric, to the slumped form, which starts the form, and to the end product, which is my 3-dimensional sculpture. We'll start with how I lay the piece in the kiln. So first I'll determine what form or shape I'm going to be creating. From there, I'm going to determine how much mass I need for that form. What I'm trying to achieve is enough mass that I have the density that I want, but not enough mass that I'll be able, with the control of the heat, to get the holes to form. Once I have fired the piece in the kiln, it will go through a 2nd, 3rd, or 4th firing, depending on the density and colors that I'm working with. At that point, the piece will be taken out. I will do some initial cold working, and then it will go back into the kiln to be slumped. The slumped form for many of my pieces is what I call a ball form, which is a gentle curve. From there, after the piece is slumped, it will be flat lapped, so I have a nice, smooth, flat surface to bring the 2 halves together. Additionally, at that point, I will also sandblast the piece to give me a matte finish. Once the piece is flat lapped, I will bring the 2 halves together. So imagine I have a 2nd half and I'm bringing that together, which will then form the 3-dimensional sculpture. This is my newest sculpture series, Embrace. It is inspired by both architecture and nature. As you will see in its lines, it is influenced by the Sydney Opera House. The architect for the Sydney Opera House was influenced by nature. As you will also see, the lines are representational of shells, of leaves falling. It's creating a sense of movement through the piece. The piece, however, is named Embrace, as I have this image of a beautiful embrace of a mama penguin as she is feeding her baby penguin nestled into her. The sculpture Enigma is an enigma. It's intriguing in the fact that the 2 circles interplay with one another, and in the moment that they intersect, they create a vesica. That vesica shifts its shape as you move around the piece, creating a sense of movement in a static sculpture. The sculpture is illuminated in this deep royal blue, which with the correct lighting will create a beautiful blue shadow. Passage, one of my new sculptures, is born out of the Enigma series. Taking a grounded approach to the sculpture, it creates these beautiful archways signifying the passage to our next journey. Enigma Ember. As the piece implies, it is fire. This is an interplay of orange, yellow, with an overlay in reds, creating the depth and richness of the red color to this piece. This piece grounds on a concrete base. The core series is about the depth of our being. The interluminescent blue core represents the core of who we are that many people don't have the opportunity to see or experience. But on those rare moments, as you're looking through the small organic holes, you'll see that inner core luminous and shine. Thanks for the opportunity to share my work with you today.
Welcome to my studio in the Galisteo Basin south of Santa Fe. This is my drawing table where I design, illustrate, write, and assemble various elements into my sculptures.
I go out to the workshop to do any work that's messy, dirty, wet, or noxious. This gives me the opportunity to be inspired by the beautiful surroundings. In my current work, exploring the childhood separation policy at our border, I'm creating beds, quilts, pillows, chairs, cribs, and playpens, the items that are meant to support and comfort us within our families and households. I've collected acorns representing nurturing, potential, strength, perseverance, and the hard work that refugees need to overcome the crisis. For the past decade, I've been creating feminist figureless garments with the essence a person leaves behind. I like combining metal and glass because of the opacity and solidity of metal, in contrast and juxtaposition to the translucency, fluidity, and fragility of the glass. The other elements I weave into pieces are about the details we bring into our lives to hold it together.
Next, we'll talk about galleries. With over 100 galleries in Albuquerque and 300 in Santa Fe, there's no shortage of places to view art, and many more galleries are carrying glass. Today, we'll hear from our correspondents in the field. We'll hear from Palette Contemporary Art and Craft in Albuquerque, Globe Fine Art, and Winter Road Fine Art, and Llewellyn Galleries in Santa Fe.
Hello, my name is Curt Nelson, and we are here at our gallery, Palette Contemporary Art and Craft, here in the northeast section of Albuquerque in the Northeast Heights. And this is actually our 19th year of business here at the same location. And just as a bit of background, since I know this is going to be on the Intersect Sofa website, we have done at least 10 shows with Sofa Chicago over the years, so that gives a little bit of a history. What we're going to do today is we're going to discuss a few of the pieces that we have in our gallery, and you can get a little bit of an idea of the ambiance in the gallery. In terms of the history and our purpose here in our gallery, we have really tried to be a contemporary art gallery where what we do is we feature international glass artists along with local and national ones, And we really attempt to carry and display pieces that are very sleek in design, very minimal, very colorful, even geometric in design, as opposed to being more ornate. The first artist that we'd like to feature today is Yukako Kojima, who lives and works in Japan. She creates her geometric designs in laminated sheet glass. Precisely, Yukako cuts, grinds, and polishes her components to then assemble them in geometric patterns with her laminations attached with a UV-sensitive acrylic glue, as shown in this particular piece. Intense light from on top will allow Yukako's pieces to glow. Aki Takimoto hails from Japan. In a painterly manner, she creates her work using fused glass and painted enamel. No worries if this wonderful ellipse is too big for your space, for she also makes smaller sculpture and jewelry. Francek Biesner, another international luminary, was from the Czech Republic and passed away in 2011. Known as the master grinder, Francek excelled in creating highly polished glass surfaces which attracted glass aficionados from across a room and mesmerized them. Francek's two works shown here are of his more recent contemporary collection. Next, we proceed to the fine art and design work of deceased Italian artist Laura de Santillana, whose bamboo vases continue to appeal as colorful, luminescent marvels which are produced in 31 different colors. Lastly, no brief palette gallery tour would be complete without viewing the work of current Czech artist Peter Ora. A master polisher in the same vein as past friend and countryman Francek Biesner, Peter on Betria executed a highly polished circular front and an acid-washed or the slightest of pebble-grain surfacing on the remainder of this strikingly colorful sculpture.
Hello, I'm Sarah Nelson. I live in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I'd love to tell you about my work. I think of my work as inventories of compositional lines and shapes inspired by my drawings, paintings, and photographs. Influenced by daily visuals seen in our landscapes and buildings, I create abstract work that captures the essence of these elements that seem to stay with me and shape my body of work. While exploring planet Earth, I become a collector of visuals saved for future use. In the studio, these elements gain energy and take form. Using layers of translucent and opaque glass with the tools of a painter, I construct improvisational works that are schematic in design and invite the viewer to move into a space of speculation. I tend to work in series and sometimes create multiple works on a single subject matter that I find fascinating, as seen here in Sunsets Over Water. As a painter, I prefer the glass canvas, as it has a luminosity that I just can't achieve with conventional canvas material.
I have always been intrigued by different qualities of light. Soft morning and evening light, sunlight dancing on any kind of water, the sparkle of the sun on snow the day after, and the depths that light can create in the subject matter. Although line, color, space, and shape share great importance in a piece of my art, in my mind, light is instrumental in contributing to the mood of a piece of my cast glass. With my abstract designs, I work on visualizing how the light can be directed through and inside a certain shape of glass, as for me, it's always about the luminous reflections and directions of the natural light surrounding a piece. Sometimes it's a smooth visual transition created by straight lines into the glass, and other times the designs allow one's eyes to move around for a few moments inside the glass, absorbing the colors that are changed by the light depending on the color density of the glass. I have learned through the difficult process of glass casting that failures are but another opportunity and a force that pushes me forward, often in a different direction.
Welcome to Globe Fine Art Santa Fe. Before entering the gallery, you can enjoy our beautiful sculpture garden. Out here we have tempered glass, we have cast glass, we have industrial glass from Buenos Aires, Argentina, and cast crystal. Beautiful things for the home and garden. Come on in. Inside the gallery, we have glass from 8 different artists, all different types of techniques. Here, for example, we have Kit Carver doing some incredible blown glass, cold work glass. This is cut with a diamond cutting saw, and you can see the intricacy in everything that's going on here. And when the light comes through, these shoot rainbows around the rim. There's actually a hole here, which is an optical illusion. Beautiful things. Let me show you another piece. Here we have a beautiful vase by Bruce Pizzicillo. Bruce is actually painting with glass because he sets all this glass up on a steel table, makes the vessel first, then he covers the vessel with clear glass, and then he rolls it on the steel table at maybe 1500 degrees, and it picks up all the different pieces of beautiful glass. When he finishes that section, he has to make this section separate and attach them together. We also have these beautiful cherry boats from Laura Goodwin. Laura makes these boats out of individual pieces of glass, and then each cherry is done one at a time and put together in this beautiful boat to make a lovely tableau. This is a whole completely different type of glass. This is Brian Russell not doing blown glass or cold work glass, but this is cast crystal. This takes about 10 days to 2 to 3 weeks to make. It's originally made with wax. It's unbelievable. And when the light comes through, it's extraordinary. Tim Stover does this incredible cold worked glass where he glues individual pieces together and then slowly grinds it for about 2 weeks. The effect is one of beauty, precision, and an absolute phenomenal effect. Take a look at this piece as well. Just gorgeous. Glass doesn't all have to be that serious. Here we have some really fun cast glass dollar bills. And then over here, some more fun things. A rocket ship made of all different types of glass. Oh, and a doghouse. Who could have thought of that? Here are some beautiful sculptures, very sort of mid-century modern by Curt Sullivan. This glass is cast from recycled glass. This glass takes about 3.5 months to make. Curt blasts it at about 2,000 degrees, 1,700 degrees, brings the temperature down to 900, and then has to bring the temperature all the way down to 70 degrees, very slowly over 3.5 months. But the result is spectacular. I think it's worth waiting 3.5 months for this beautiful, thick piece of glass. I don't think there's any rule book to make glass this thick. So a lot of it is trial and error. So please stop by Santa Fe and come on over to Globe Fine Art for some world-class glass.
Hi, I'm Carla Winterode of Winterode Fine Art in Santa Fe, sharing with you today 4 of our glass artists: Dylan Martinez, Alex Bernstein, Mark Laputa, and Karen Bexfield. All are true glass masters. Dylan Martinez enjoys working in clear glass. He loves viewing the optics as a subject matter within the work, like this sculpture, Mach 6. It's made of over 50 pieces of clear glass. He actually pulled each glass shape. He then cut the shapes and then filed the shapes down, finally polishing each individual shape before he then adhered it all together with a high-tech glue. The result is truly dazzling. The other way that Dylan likes to work in clear glass is in a Floyd technique, where it appears to be something that it's not. This is not a bag of water. It's actually a glass sculpture. And this glass sculpture is created in a couple of parts. The lower part is hot sculpted glass. The upper part is a blown piece of glass, and then he has to adhere the two shapes together. Let's take a look inside his studio to see how he creates the tassel.
To help turn that kind of plate into more of a folded napkin look. And that gives me the details of the tassel.
Alex Bernstein's sculptures are truly masterful. He's casting glass. He casts many colors of glass together to create subtle shifts. Sometimes he utilizes the bubbling technique within the glass to create an effervescence within the work. And these sculptures, after they're cast, are cut and carved. Occasionally he'll polish the works. We just love the natural aspect of the work. It feels like it's coming from nature. He also uses a signature technique called Bernsteining. It's where he adds steel to the glass. So it has an unusual quality to it, and it becomes otherworldly.
Now I'd like to demonstrate my process of fused steel, or again, nowadays it's called Bernsteining, where I actually grind sparks onto the glass and they fuse into the glass, and that's how I'm able to get this opaque surface. So with a grinder and a piece of steel, I'm just going to start grinding. So if you look closely, you can start to see how the steel is starting just to fuse to the surface. It takes, obviously, a very long time, days and sometimes weeks to do this. But again, this is the one that's pretty much finished. So you can see how the glass part is now pretty much totally opaque. And this piece will eventually be that same opaque surface.
I'm so enjoying the micro-macro world of Mark Laputa's sculptures. First of all, we love the colors that he brings into his work, and we like that he's creating these microcosms of colors that are expanding and contracting with these beautiful optical circles that he's carving into his sculptures. This artist starts with blowing glass, and then he actually cuts and carves into the glass, and then he reblows the glass to make the patterns and shapes expand. So it is always reminding us of nature and how it's ever expansive. Thank you for joining us today at Winter Road Fine Art in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Please join us on our website at fineartsantafe.com.
Lujan Galleries has been a pioneering force for contemporary art in the Southwest for more than 45 years. Maintaining a robust show schedule each year, Lujan has earned a reputation, both nationally and internationally, for representing some of the nation's most well-known living painters and sculptors, as well as showcasing signal works by masters of American and European modernism. We have shown work by artists working in the medium of glass for more than 25 years. And this is an important part of the gallery's program. Our roster of glass artists includes the likes of John Kiley, Hiroshi Yamano, Matthew Curtis, Lucy Lyon, Steve Klein, Peter Bremmers, Lachazar Wojciech, Carmen Vetter, and Verushka Vaughan. Lucy Lyon's work is distinctive in modern glass for her use of figurative subject matter. Her art evokes a highly personal sensibility, using the glass material to tell visual narratives with psychological subtext. In this piece, Lucy takes the reclining female form, which has often been depicted in paintings in art history, but uses the glass material to convey her subject in a new way. This piece by Peter Bremmer is entitled Connected Space. It's a great example of an artist's formal investigation into the metaphorical properties of the glass medium. In this kiln cast sculpture, Bremmer incorporates an inner space. Here we can see that the piece has both an outer shell and an inner shell. It creates the impression of liminal forms set within enveloping light. We find often that our buyers of glass art are not just collectors of glass. Often, they are crossover sales to clients who collect paintings, but also have an interest in sculpture glasswork. Many of our artists working in glass have mentioned that they were interested at the outset in showing their work next to paintings and other sculpture in context of a contemporary art gallery, which has broadened their reach to new collectors for their glasswork.
Next, we move on to collectors. The artwork finds a path from the artist's studio to the gallery and then to the collector. Finally, the art piece finds its special place to shine and be viewed in its glory. We thank all collectors who collect glass art, and we celebrate. Now we hear from a collector in Santa Fe.
Let me give you a little bit of information first about the house. We completed construction in 2002. The architect was a local architect at that time named Sofia Marquez, and he described the house as a contemporary pueblo. That time there weren't a lot of contemporary homes being built in this particular development. But let me start showing you some of the art pieces that we've collected over the years. This is a local artist, Ethelinda. She lives in New Mexico and she paints horses, as you can see, but also Native Americans and floral arrangements. But we love the motion of the horses. This is a really fascinating artist, Judy Two Wallets Tia, who lives in Galisteo. And she works in a variety of mediums, but this is a portrait that she did with glass chips that she actually creates herself. And we love her work, and we love Judy. She's just a fascinating person. And I will move down here to sort of the centerpiece of the house. And actually the house was actually built around this piece. Our architects met with Dale Chihuly, who is the artist on this. He calls this a chandelier, although it doesn't have any interior lights. It's only lit from the exterior. It started out being about 1/3 of this size, but when Dale Chihuly saw the blueprints for the house, he wanted to fill up the space, and we are the lucky recipients of this fantastic piece. Over here we have a piece by an artist named John Kiley that's he calls a fractograph. He takes a piece of optical glass, drops a dollop of hot glass on it, it fractures the piece, then he puts it back together. We love the energy of this. This is Dick Evans. He's a local painter. When we saw this piece and we knew about the color of the Chihuly, we said this has to definitely be in our house somewhere. This is a collaborative piece between Preston Singletary, he did the wolves on the piece, and Dante Moroni, who is just an excellent glass blower who does these exquisite patterns. This is a Native American artist who lives up in the Pacific Northwest, Dan Friday, and this is one of his totems. He also does bears and other native cultural pieces. And Roddy is going to talk about this piece up here.
This is our newest edition. This piece is by Lucy Lyon. Her attention to detail is truly wonderful. Each piece is unique in its own right, but then the collection together is just one of my favorite pieces.
Lucy calls this the street. This is William Morris. He calls this the urn. He was one of the very top glassblowers. He retired from glassblowing a number of years ago, but his pieces are really exquisite.
The next piece is by Lino Taplepetria, who's a world-renowned glass artist. He worked with Chihuly on the glass over Venice.
This is a piece by Thomas Havlicka, who's a Czechoslovakian artist. He calls this Nightmare. We look at it as a heart and try not to think of it as a nightmare. Over here.
This is the next piece. It's done by Tobias Moll, and each piece is unique in its own right. He uses a Venetian texture to his work, and it's lit from behind.
This piece is by the two most famous glass casting couple. They are from Czechoslovakia, Lubinsky and Brachtova. And this time of day, as you can see, the cut in the top of the glass has sort of a turquoise iridescence. And it's beautiful in its simplicity. In here, we've got more glass. We have about maybe 100 pieces of glass in our collection. This piece is by Elodie Holmes. It's called Honey Queen. And Elodie, as I say, is a local artist, has a couple of hot shops here in town. Another local artist and good friend is Willie Hay. This is her work. This piece is interesting. It's done by a Tongan artist who lives in Australia. His name is Tavita Havia. And it's hard to see, but a lot of the symbolism of the Tongan culture is on the glass portion. And then he does this wrap that's very indicative of his culture as well. Painting is by Sally Anderson, who used to have a gallery on the plaza in Santa Fe. This was an early purchase over here. It's a Dale Chihuly Macchia. Often if you see a large Chihuly exhibit, he'll have dozens of these. He calls it a Macchia forest. And Roddy was one who spotted this one night when we were walking down Canyon Road, and we feel very fortunate to have it. This piece on the coffee table is by Bertel Valin. He is the chief designer for Costa Boda, and this is a very, very typical of the pieces he does. He does this boat series, and it's very symbolic of his life and his experiences. And on the table here is a an artist. Her name is Tutz Zinski. She's based in New York, and she uses this glass fiber. These are all individual threads of glass that she puts together and then slumps into this form. And it's just such an organic work. We really enjoy it. Up here we have a piece by one of the founders of the American Glass Movement, Mary Schaefer, who lives in New Mexico. And she likes to work with found objects. These are old tools and metal pieces, and then slump glass over it. It's a wonderful piece. We'll move into the kitchen. This is a piece by a very good friend and another New Mexico artist. His name is Harry Pollitt. And he was a wood carver first and then transferred his wood carving techniques to glass. And it's just, we love the movement of it. And when people come in, it normally sits on our dining room table, but it's a favorite of a lot of people that come through the house. Now we'll go down to the den for a minute. This is a wolf hat by Preston Singletary. This is a piece Roddy and I had a chance to go to Venice, and we had a tour guide who turned out to be a glass artist. His name was Massimo Nordio, and this is a piece that he did called Icarus's Wing with a shaman's bowl, and we just thought it was perfect for here. And he was an interesting guy, a photographer first, glassmaker second. And we're quite fascinated by Native American pottery, especially the vintage pottery. We showed you a few pieces back in the bedroom. These range from 1780, the piece on the center at the top. The most recent piece we have is like 1960, and they're representative of about 10 different pueblos in New Mexico and nearby states. This is supposedly a chieftain's door from a tribe in Nigeria. And the thing that makes it interesting to us is it's made out of entirely of Czechoslovakian glass beads. So all this is glass work, and it's just a fascinating piece. It's from Dale Chihuly. He sent it to us while we were waiting to finish building the house and get the chandelier piece that the house was basically built around. And it was sent at Christmas time, so it was a wonderful Christmas surprise. Hope you enjoyed it. We certainly enjoyed having you here. Roddy and I feel very blessed to have the collection we have. We enjoy living with it, but what we really enjoy is seeing it through other people's eyes. So we hope you enjoyed the tour today, and we hope maybe you'll have a chance to come and visit us in person sometime. Thanks very much.
Well, we'd like to acknowledge everybody who committed to this project and supported it by submitting videos from our hot shops, the museum. Here's some acknowledgements that we'd like to have here. Our galleries all submitted fine material, and our artists and our collector. And we'd certainly like to thank Intersect Chicago and SOFA and AACG for supplying this opportunity for us. Until we can all meet in person again, we'd love for you to visit us virtually at glassnm.org and stay safe. Thank you.